What if the same super balance that barely covers a modest retirement in Melbourne could actually fund a genuinely comfortable one somewhere else entirely? I want you to sit with that question for a second, because it's not a trick, and it's not clickbait. I know an Australian, mid-60s, who spent years worried his super wouldn't stretch far enough. Renting in Sydney, watching prices climb, doing the maths over and over, and never quite feeling settled about it. Then he spent 3 weeks in Chiang Mai visiting a friend who'd made the move a few years earlier. Same rough super balance as him. Completely different life. A proper apartment, regular meals out, private healthcare he could actually afford, and none of the quiet financial anxiety that had been sitting in the back of his mind for years. That's a real pattern, and it's genuinely achievable for a lot of Australians. But I also want to be upfront with you, because I've seen how this topic gets covered online, and most of it skips the parts that actually matter. The visa rules, the pension complications, the tax questions, the healthcare gaps. So today, on RetireScope AU, we're going through the whole picture. What's genuinely possible, what catches people off guard, and exactly what you need to understand before you make a decision like this. Let's start with a number that gets everyone's attention, because it's the reason this conversation exists in the first place. Cost of living in Thailand generally runs somewhere between 40 and 60% of what you'd spend in Sydney, Melbourne, or Brisbane. That's not a marketing figure, that's a genuine, well-documented gap. Here's what that looks like in real terms. A couple living comfortably in Chiang Mai, which tends to be one of the better value bases in the country, can expect to spend somewhere around 32,000 baht a month, which converts to roughly 455 Australian dollars. If you're after a beach lifestyle in a place like Phuket, that figure climbs to around 65,000 baht, closer to 2,955 Australian dollars a month, still considerably less than an equivalent lifestyle back home. Now here's the part that really changes the equation for a lot of retirees. The full single-age pension, paid at the overseas rate, currently sits at roughly $550 a week. Convert that into Thai baht, and you're looking at somewhere around 52,000 baht a month. In a place like Chiang Mai, that's not just covering your living costs, that's leaving a genuine surplus every single month. Money that could go toward flights home, unexpected medical costs, or simply building up savings again after years of feeling stretched thin. I think this is worth being honest about. This isn't really about being cheap or settling for less. It's about the fact that a lot of Australians reach retirement with a super balance that technically works on paper, but leaves almost no breathing room in an Australian city. Moving that same money somewhere, the cost of living is dramatically lower can be the difference between constantly watching your bank balance and actually enjoying the years you worked your whole life to get to. But here's what almost every video about this topic completely skips over. The part where your pension might actually change the moment you leave Australia longer than you expected. Let's talk about the visa first, because that's usually where people start, and it's more accessible than most people assume. The main pathway for Australians is called the Non-Immigrant OA Retirement Visa. You need to be 50 or older, and you need to show either 800,000 baht sitting in a Thai bank account, which is roughly $35,000 to $38,000 Australian dollars, or a monthly income of at least 65,000 baht, around $2,800 Australian, or a combination of both adding up to the same total. Here's something worth knowing if you're already on the age pension. The maximum single-age pension currently runs at approximately 1,096 baht a fortnight, which generally already exceeds that 65,000 baht monthly income requirement once converted. That means a lot of pensioners are already meeting the financial threshold without needing to park a large lump sum in a Thai bank account at all. There's also a longer option called the OX visa, which gives you 10 years instead of 1, and Australians are on the eligible nationality list for it. But the financial bar is considerably higher, generally around 96,000 US dollars in savings, or a combination of a smaller deposit plus close to 38,000 US dollars in annual income. For most retirees relying primarily on the age pension, the standard OA visa tends to be the more realistic path. What I want you to understand, though, is that this visa is not a set-and-forget situation. You need to report your address to Thai immigration every 90 days. You need a re-entry permit if you plan on traveling in and out. And you need to renew annually, which means maintaining those financial requirements year after year, not just at the initial application. It's manageable, thousands of Australians do it every year, but it does require ongoing attention. And here's where things get genuinely tricky, because the visa is really only half the puzzle. The other half is what happens to your Australian pension the moment you're away longer than expected. This is the part I think deserves the most attention, because it's where people genuinely get caught out, sometimes after they've already made the move. Yes, you can generally keep receiving your age pension while living in Thailand, but the rules around exactly how much you receive and under what conditions are more layered than most people realize. If you're overseas for up to 6 weeks, your payment continues as normal. Between 6 and 26 weeks, your pension supplement drops to the basic rate, and your energy supplement stops altogether. Once you pass 26 weeks, which is where anyone planning to actually live overseas will land, your rate depends heavily on how long you lived in Australia between the age of 16 and pension age. Generally speaking, you need 35 years of Australian residency to receive the full rate while living overseas. If you have less than that, your payment gets reduced proportionally. Someone with only 20 years of residency, for example, might only receive a little over half the full rate once living permanently overseas. There's another detail that catches people off guard almost every time. Australia and Thailand do not currently have a social security agreement between them, unlike some other countries Australians commonly retire to. That doesn't mean you can't receive your pension in Thailand. You generally can, but it does mean there's no additional international agreement smoothing over the portability rules. So the standard residency-based calculations apply in full. And one more thing worth knowing if you own a home in Australia. Your family home is normally exempt from the pension assets test. But if you're overseas for more than 12 months, Centrelink generally starts treating you as a non-homeowner for assessment purposes, which can change how your overall assets are calculated. It's a detail that's easy to miss when you're focused on the excitement of the move itself. This is exactly the kind of thing that catches people off guard after they've already relocated. But there's actually a piece of genuinely good news buried in this year's federal budget that's worth knowing about. Before we get into that, if this is the kind of detailed, honest breakdown you wish more people gave you about retirement planning, hit like on this video and subscribe to RetireScope AU. We cover exactly this kind of thing every week. No sugarcoating, no sales pitch, just the real information Australians need before making big decisions like this one. So here's the positive update. Buried in this year's federal budget papers was a change that extends how long pensioners can spend overseas before their pension supplement is affected. From the 20th of September 2026, that window doubles from 6 weeks to 12 weeks. After 12 weeks overseas, the supplement stops, and if you're moving permanently, it stops immediately upon departure regardless. What this actually means in practical terms is that Australians who split their time between Thailand and Australia, say a few months each year rather than a full permanent relocation, now have significantly more breathing room before their payments are affected. It's not a game changer for someone permanently relocating, but for anyone considering a part-time, seasonal version of this lifestyle, it's a genuinely useful shift and, honestly, more flexibility than the system has offered in years. So the system is quietly getting a little more forgiving in some areas. But there's still one cost that catches almost everyone off guard, and it has nothing to do with Centrelink at all. Healthcare. Medicare does not work outside Australia at all. It only becomes active again the moment you're physically back on Australian soil. Which means for the entire time you're living in Thailand, you're relying entirely on private health insurance. For the OA retirement visa specifically, health insurance is mandatory, and it needs to meet a minimum coverage requirement of 3 million baht, roughly $136,000 Australian dollars. For a healthy person in their 60s or early 70s, Thai-based insurance plans meeting that requirement generally run somewhere between 20,000 and 50,000 baht a year. If you'd prefer a more internationally recognized provider, something like Allianz Care, which a lot of Australian expats use, tends to run somewhere between $120 and $350 Australian dollars a month, depending on your age and any existing health conditions. Here's a tip that genuinely matters, and it's one that gets missed constantly. Sort out your health insurance before you leave Australia, ideally before any new conditions are diagnosed. Insurers price your policy based on your health status at the time you apply, and pre-existing conditions can significantly increase your premiums, or in some cases, exclude coverage entirely. The private hospitals in Thailand's major cities are genuinely excellent, internationally accredited, English-speaking staff, modern facilities, often shorter wait times than you'd experience in Australia. But that quality of care comes through the private system, and the private system requires proper insurance behind it. And there's one more thing that trips people up almost every time, and it's got nothing to do with visas or pensions at all. It's tax. If you spend more than 180 days in Thailand within a calendar year, you become a Thai tax resident. Since January 2024, foreign income that you actually bring into Thailand can be subject to Thai income tax if you're classified as a tax resident in the year you transfer it. There's some relief here, though. Savings and income earned before 2024 are generally not caught by this rule, which matters if you're planning to draw down long-held super or savings rather than newer income streams. There's also a double taxation agreement between Australia and Thailand, which is specifically designed to prevent you being taxed twice on the same income. But how that agreement actually applies depends heavily on the type of income you're bringing in, whether it's age pension payments, superannuation drawdowns, or investment income. Honestly, this is the one area in this entire conversation where I'd strongly encourage you not to try and figure it out alone. A conversation with an Australian tax accountant, and potentially a Thai one if your financial situation is more complex, is genuinely worth the cost before you commit to anything. So where does all of this actually leave you? Let's bring it together with what genuinely matters if you're seriously considering this. Australians tend to cluster around a handful of established areas. Hua Hin is probably the most traditional Australian favorite, a beach town about 2.5 hours from Bangkok with a large, welcoming expat community already in place. Chiang Mai in the north is generally the most affordable major city, with stunning scenery and a slower pace of life. Phuket offers the beach lifestyle with direct flights from Australia, but it's genuinely the most expensive option among the popular choices. If you're seriously considering this, here's the practical order I'd think through it in. Apply for your age pension while you're still living in Australia, not after you've already left. Contact Centrelink International Services before you go, so there are no surprises about how your specific situation will be assessed. Sort out proper health insurance before departure, ideally before any health issues arise. Speak with a tax professional about your specific income sources and how the Thai and Australian systems will interact. And genuinely visit first. Spend a few weeks in the city you're considering before committing to anything long-term, because the difference between a 2-week holiday and an actual daily life somewhere is bigger than most people expect. I also want to say this honestly because I don't think it gets said enough in these videos. This move isn't right for everyone, and that's okay. If you've got grandchildren you see every week, a tight community you've built over decades, or family responsibilities that keep you rooted here, the financial upside of a move like this has to be weighed against what you'd actually be leaving behind. Money isn't the only variable in this decision, even though it's the one that gets talked about the most. Here's what I want you to walk away with. Retiring to Thailand from Australia is genuinely achievable, and for a lot of people, it solves a real financial problem that simply can't be solved by staying in an expensive Australian city on a fixed income. But it only works well for when you go in with your eyes open, understanding exactly how your pension, your visa, your healthcare, and your tax situation will actually play out, not just the version of it that looks good in a travel blog. That's exactly the kind of honest, practical information RetireScope AU exists to give you. Not to sell you on a lifestyle, but to make sure that if you do go down this path, you're doing it with the full picture in front of you. I want to know what you think. Drop a comment below and tell me, have you ever seriously considered retiring overseas? What's the one thing that would stop you from doing it, or the one thing that would actually make you consider it seriously? I read every comment, and it genuinely shapes what we dig into next. And if you know someone who's been quietly dreaming about a move like this, maybe mentioning it at family dinners without really following through, send them this video before they start piecing it together from half-true information online. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.